Hello, everyone, and welcome to the W2 Amigos podcast, where we talk about passive investing, real estate, and all the money moves you can make while working your W2 so you can establish your financial freedom. Here to talk about their W2 journeys, your hosts and amigos, Nick Coulter and Xavier Marin. Nick, what is up, man? Today is going to be a little different intro. Why is that, Nick?
Because we recorded 2 back-to-back episodes, so nothing is new in the last hour and 30 minutes with me. I don't think anything is new with you. Am I correct?
Nope, nothing at all. So I think we just jumped straight into it.
Yeah. The reason for that, guys, I'm catching up a little bit from the honeymoon. You know, I was out for 10 days, and so we didn't really record at all. And then my wife got COVID, so it was also tough to record during that time. So I appreciate y'all not having a background for us, but.
Oh, wow. So I guess that is something that was new with you. Your wife had COVID.
I mean, yeah, that's true. She had it a while ago. She's fine. All right. So today we are talking to Justin Cambra. He is a realtor in the Seattle area. He is a very successful investor. We have some pretty staggering numbers here to share with you guys. But just really all in all, I mean, I think a fantastic guy, really, really motivational in terms of his journey and his story. He talked a lot about some really cool things that I was really happy about. So I think the thing for me that I loved was, and I personally took away, he talked a lot about investing in yourself. So he has spent over $100,000 in personal education, and he has turned that at least tenfold, well into millionaire status. I would imagine 20 or 30 fold. And he's really reaping the benefits in his really wonderfully run business. And now he's in a financial position where his goals are probably going to shift to helping people be successful, which is really cool. What about you, X? What'd you like?
Yeah, I would say he's probably one of the most determined and disciplined individuals that I've met throughout my real estate career. He talks about how he avoided a lifestyle creep. So to this day, he was house hacking back in 2016. And he has his car back in the day as well. I think he said it was like an '06 Charger. So till this day in 2022, making the money that he's making with real estate, he still lives in the same house. He still drives the same car. And that's not going to change anytime soon. So I think that was really great to hear from his end, and just really how disciplined and focused he is to make sure he continues to scale up his portfolio.
All right. Let's not make him wait anymore. Let's get into the episode. All right, W2 Amigos, we have Justin Cambra joining us, and it's just in time to talk a little bit about his journey through his W2 and his investment strategy. So without further delay, Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, Nick, Xavier, thanks for having me on the podcast. Excited to be able to help share my story, help your audience out. Been listening to your guys' podcast for about a week now. I think it was up to 7 episodes, and congrats on that. In terms of my background, how I got into real estate, started back in, 2016. So it's just over 6 years ago is when I started. Where I started is, I think how a lot of people did, and what I recommend when you start is focused on a house hack. So I had bought houses before, but this time I was purposeful looking for a house hack. So at the time, I didn't know it was called a house hack. I was into sports, and I heard, the term in basketball is and one. So you get fouled, and then you get a shot. So my thought was like, I want to live there, and then the and one would be a rental. And so later on, I found out that was called a house hack. So I bought that house hack in Seattle, just by the airport, and that was August 2016. I actually still live there. I'm still in the same unit. So I'm in the 1 bedroom, 1 bath 6 years later. And then I rent the bottom out. It's a 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath. Over the years, it's changed from a long-term rental to a short-term rental. Then COVID hit. Then I'm medium-term rental, have traveling nurses in there right now. But through that, I went from having a little bit of money to cover the mortgage to breaking even to living for free. So, the beauty is if you get in over time, the mortgage is fixed, the rents are going up. So that's how I got in as a house hack.
That's awesome. It's funny you say that. I don't know if you've listened to the episode. Obviously, everyone is a avid W2 Amigos listener. So we did an episode on it. And it's funny, I listened back to it the other day, And X basically had to tell me to shut up halfway through because I was so excited talking about house hacking, and I wouldn't let him get a word in edgewise. I'm so pumped.
Especially if you're on the FI team, right? They love the house hack.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to lie. That is a good FI team plug. You know, the FI team,
Yeah.
investor-friendly agents in multiple markets. It can help you find out your own house hack. We do it. X did it. Obviously, Justin, you're in one, which is awesome. So how'd you go about finding that house hack? How did you land that first deal? Obviously bought in 2016, which is a fantastic time, but I'm sure you didn't feel that way when you first got it.
Yeah. So when I first was getting into the game, it was just traditional. I think what most people are doing nowadays, you know, Redfin, Zillow, Keller Williams, app, whatever, just searching through, even Truly I was looking at the time, just trying to find anything that was small multifamily. So 1 to 4 units, so I could still use the FHA loan on the property. And, you know, it's a different world today, but back then it was super hot, you know, so much so that every offer had escalations. And so I originally got this, the property was listed at 450 and I had my escalation to go up to 600. That was the environment that it was in.
Damn.
And then I ultimately landed in at 535.
That's pretty good. So walk us through a little bit. I mean, hopefully you've probably refinanced now, so I'm sure your mortgage is a lot lower. And I'm sure you got a ton of equity and you may have pulled some out, but walk us through that original deal. How'd you get started with getting the rooms rented out or the bottom unit rented out? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so when I started, the whole plan was long-term rental. And like everything I've done in real estate is I didn't know how to do it. I just started learning about it, jump in and figure it out as I go. And so first got the property, got a FHA loan. You know, I was a W-2 at the time, so that really made it easy to get a loan. So once I got the property, then at my employer, what I did is I just put on the intranet saying, hey, apartment available. If you want to come check it out, here's the details. Saturday, it was like 9 a.m., doing an open house. I also listed it on, I think it was Zillow or something like that, Craigslist. And then within like the first 5 minutes of posting it at my job, a guy goes, I'll be there tomorrow. I'm like, okay. Shows up the next day, shows up with a money order and says, I want it. How much money do I need to give you? And I was like, well, I don't know. I was like, my girlfriend was there and I was like, give us a minute. We're like, how much should we charge? You know? And then it was like we said $1,000. He goes, here. And he just gave us $1,000, you know? And then he was like, well, where's the lease? And I'm like, oh, we'll send it to you tonight when we get to the laptop. We had no idea where to get the lease, right? I think we did LegalZoom or something like that for the first one. So then I went online, found it, filled it out, and this guy was kind of a details guy, and he's like, well, shouldn't you have some more rules, like house rules? And I was like, yeah, good idea. So I was just kind of, you know, doing it on the fly, and then everything all worked out. You know, because he worked at the same company, it was easier in terms of, you know, validating that, you know, he's got a good paying job. So everything all worked out. And then, you know, about a year and a half later, he ended up getting hired away to another tech company in the Bay Area. So I was like, well, perfect timing to see, let's test this Airbnb thing out, which was the craze. And that was around 2018. And so I did Airbnb up until 18 to 20. And then 20 is when COVID, and then shifted over to traveling nurses, medium-term rental.
That's awesome. So how, walk us through a little bit of that W-2 journey and how you ended up being able to afford a pretty nice duplex in that area of Seattle, which is not the cheapest, especially back then. I mean, I know prices, people are going to hear $530 for a duplex. They're probably going to get all like, oh, just bought at the right time, blah, blah, blah. But back then that was a really expensive duplex in Seattle. So how did your W-2 journey escalate to allow you to afford something like that?
Yeah, so where I'm at, there's a base salary and then there's RSUs, so restricted stock units. So at that time, I was a couple years already into the company, and at that, the stock was taking off. So I had all these RSUs coming at me that I could then cash in. And so I was using the RSUs as a down payment, and then my W-2 as my, you know, to show the, you know, the debt to income ratio was good in terms of my viability to make the payments.
That's awesome. Do you remember what your original mortgage was? And obviously you were getting $1,000 a month, kind of where you were at in terms of covering the majority of your expenses?
I want to say it was around like 2,500. I've refinanced twice, and now I have a HELOC against it. But the taxes have progressively gone up.
Mm-hmm.
So like my PITI is about 2,900 right now, right at 3% for the fixed rate. And I'm getting, depends on the time of year, 3,000 to 3,250 per month on that lower unit for the traveling nurses. So, if you factor in some utilities there for the lower unit, I basically live for free.
What I love about that property you have there, Justin, is so it's a duplex, and you literally tried 3 different ways to make money off of it. Right? You start off with a long-term rental. You were able to pivot after that individual left and to do short-term rental Airbnb. COVID happened, and you pivot to midterm rentals. So I think that's a luxury of having a duplex like that, is you're able to do different type of strategies. So you don't always have to be committed to like, hey, I bought it as a long-term rental. I have to keep it as such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The beauty of this one, back to the and one again, is that it's on 2/3 of an acre. So, and they're in the process of upzoning it right now. So assuming that gets approved, I'll be able to put, 2/3 of 12, 8 units on this property. So the end game is like I would tear down the duplex and then put 8 townhomes on the property. So there's another exit strategy that I have. The other exit strategy is, or not necessarily exit, is how to make more money with the same property, is that I just started doing Turo. And so I have 2 Turo vehicles here because I'm close to the airport. So people come by, take an Uber here, take the car, rent it out, drop it back off. So trying to maximize the opportunity for every property on how I make money.
How'd you get involved in a Turo? Because I've heard a couple. I think it was like the Weekly Juice podcast had somebody on there that was making like $10,000 a month in addition to all their other side income streams on Turo. And I'm not gonna lie, your boy, your amigo Nick wants to buy a better car. I have a POS Honda Civic and it's free, it's paid for, whatever. I want to buy like a base Model 3 and then put them both on Turo and then like rent out and just drive whatever one's not rented out.
Right.
So tell us a little bit, how'd you get into that? And like, what are you making on those things?
So a friend of mine was doing it already and was seeing positive results. At the same time, I had just retired from my W-2 job. And so he was like, hey, you're just going to screw off because you have nothing to do. So I'm making money on this. It's still relatively new. Jump into this, keep yourself busy while you figure out what you're going to do. And so I was like, okay. Plus I was still working. So I technically had a W-2. So I got these 2 cars. I got the 2 loans on the car, no payments for 90 days. And if you are familiar with Airbnb, it's a very similar model. Like you want to have be a super host. They have a different term for it, but so in terms of how much money I made, I purposely have been lowering the price for the first month to increase my transactions, to increase my reviews, and increase my opportunity for responding to the guests. Now I'm already now at the threshold to be basically a super host for Turo. So now I've since increased all my prices to market pricing. The first 3 weeks on 2 cars, I made gross about $1,000. And then as I move forward, the anticipated numbers there is to be about 1,500-ish gross per month per car. So that would net about 500 to 750, depends on the month. Because my monthly nut per car between insurance, the car cleaning, and then the insurance is about $750. And then every so often I'll have to do oil changes and stuff like that. So the goal there is in a perfect world, I can make $1,000 per car per month, help supplement the income post-retirement. And, like you're talking about doing is I can use either one of those cars when they're not in use. So in terms of my, I'm a real estate agent now. So I could take it and show clients if I wanted to. Cause I have a 2006 Dodge charger that is like on the fritz. So much so that, it has all this power, but I don't even throttle it anymore. I'm just like babying it. I'm like, every time I do, something happens, so.
You're worried it's going to blow up on you. That's pretty
exactly. So it's like an insurance plan for me. So like if it does blow up, I got 2 Turos that I can use intermittently. So far everything's been great. And I actually just got a monthly booking. I increased my monthly discount rate to 40%. So a guy jumped on it, and so about 35 days, I'm going to make almost $1,100. So I'd rather take a little bit less money for a longer period, because then I don't got to turn.
Yeah,
that's less time for me to turn. So I'd net, I'll make gross dollars less, but the effort in that is way better for me.
Super cool.
Yeah, Justin. So you mentioned, I'm going to take it back just a little bit. You shared how you have multiple exit strategies with your duplex. You shared how your Toro business is taking off right now. I'm going to assume that you had everything figured out since day one, right? You already knew what everything was going to look like when you first got the duplex. You knew exactly how things were going to look like when you got your Toro. I'm going to assume that you did all your homework, or did you just figure it all out as you just started doing some of these things?
The latter. So I just jump in and figure it out as I go. And that's kind of like the model at the prior company I was at. We just, it wasn't there. So then you'd have to build it and figure it out as you go. That's how I've been doing my investing. And for me, it was like I had the burning desire to get out and be financially free. The only way you do that is you take action. And over the course of the year, being in different masterminds and stuff like that, I'm not great at one thing. What I do differently than other people, though, is like I just jump in and do it. So that's how I've been able to be successful over the last 6 years, while other people have done 1 or 2 transactions. I'm, well over 40 transactions, just in my personal real estate side.
Awesome. So you mentioned right now, Mastermind. How has that helped you out with your journey, and where are we at right now?
So masterminds, and I'll broaden that out to conferences as well. The biggest thing that newbies get involved, 1, there's so much information. 2 is that if you really are into this, you're going to separate yourself very quickly. So within the first 6 months, I'd already separated, because I went from 0 to 1. And then within the first year, then I bought 3 more, and I was over 20 units or something like that. And so as I started separating, the people that I was hanging around with didn't know more than me. So I'm always trying to get into the next group that knows more than me. And that's where these masterminds and the conferences come into play. You start meeting people, even if it's 1 year ahead of you, but if they're doing more or doing something you want to get into, that's really the benefit of it. And so pretty much since 2018, I've been in some sort of a mastermind basically every year. And every year it's going bigger and bigger dollar amounts. And right now I'm paying $25,000 a year for a mastermind to hang out with people that are doing big deals. And, the first, and this is my second year in that one, and the first, 30 days, or I'd say 3 months of doing it, I helped get a wholesale deal that more than paid for that fee. So it's just a matter of, you got to get into these rooms around these people that are ahead of you, so that you can, in my mind, it's like drafting off of them. They're already ahead of you. Just follow what they're doing, because they're successful. So don't change up the plan. Just copy exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I look at those things as more of the investment in yourself, because you're investing in properties, you're investing in cars, you're investing in all these assets. Your mind and your ability to execute is also, in my opinion, an asset, and you're investing money into that to get a higher return on investment from yourself, which I think is super cool and really powerful, because so many people, I'm sure yourself and I know X and I included, we see the price tag of a mastermind. It's I can't pay $350 a month. When you do the math, it's it's $4,000 a year, but you may make a deal that's going to make you $13,000 or $14,000 every year for the rest of your life if you hold it forever. So it's worth it.
Exactly. Yeah, and you never know until you get into it. You hear other people talk about it, and they're like, "Oh, because I'm well over 100,000 in educational type stuff. And it wasn't until I got in and started hanging out and they're like, wow, this is really where it's at. Because like, if you stay in that kind of newbie nucleus, then it just seems like you hang out there and then you never elevate. And so you've got to, some of it is you got to drive yourself, and some of it people need to pull you forward. And so it's a no-brainer. Once you get in, you have to get into some sort of mastermind, at a minimum, a network of people. So if you're on Bigger Pockets, just connecting with people. I used to do that as well. Like, never physically met them, but we had exchanged. And if they have a commonality, whether it's where you invest or the type of investment, you can at least exchange information, even though it's not quote unquote a mastermind. It's connecting with other people that are doing the similar things.
Yeah. And the value. So you and I were in the same mastermind 3 years ago. That's how you and I got connected. And I remember what I was paying during that time. And I was like, man, that's a lot of money. But I was fairly new. I was just starting off my house hack. I was like, hey, it's probably worth it. Looking back at it now, I'd probably easily pay double of what I was paying, just because of the folks that I ended up meeting and those relationships that I essentially ended up coming to fruition, which is, you can't put a price on that. And to add on to it, at the end of the day, even if you pay for a mastermind, you have to be committed and you have to do the work, because just by jumping in and paying for it, it's automatically going to guarantee you that you're going to get much out of it. It's like, how much work are you putting into it as well too? Because ultimately, sometimes people just want to learn through osmosis, but it's like, ask those questions, make those observations, because at the end of the day, just by being part of the group, that's just step one. What else are you doing to kind of like propel yourself to the next step?
Exactly. The relationships, even specifically the one you're talking about, we see each other at all these other events now. And that tight bond that we have, that we can now reach out to each other if we have issues or need help on something, or the flip side, want to support somebody else. And it's been great to see, as there's that group, as we continue to expand, it's helping to drive us forward, because there's one guy in that where we kind of compete, like he gets more units, I get more units, and it's a good camaraderie to build and connect with people over time. So where, when you're going to, for example, we're just at Bigger Pockets in San Diego, and we get to see each other, hang out. Even if you're going solo, like, you have all these friends that you already know. And so then the conference is just that much better.
So we talked about masterminds, talked about investing in yourself. Are you good to give our listeners a little overview of where your total portfolio is at right now?
Yeah, total portfolio today, and this is after 6 years, I'm at 39 properties, 105 rental units, gross rents just over 80,000, and the 80,000 assumes that they pay. So sometimes, during COVID, it was pretty shaky there at times. But and nowadays with a chunk of mine is Airbnb, and so in the summer, man, those things just rip. And then as it gets into the winter, it'll be almost break even. So, but on average, it's just over about 80,000 a month. And what I'm doing today is just, since leaving W2 life in September, is just focusing on standardizing and improving my business. And so it's like changing my entity structures over, streamlining my bookkeeping. So I'm doing like weekly updates so that I'm actually a real business. Before, it was just very lumpy. I needed to get a loan or needed to do taxes. So now I'm trying just to be consistent there. And the better that I am consistency, the better I can manage the business.
So you left in September and worked a high-paying W-2 and got 105 doors. How did you accomplish that? What were your strategies? How did you afford all these loans? Like, what did you go through to get these units? Because that's amazing.
Yeah. So I just kept going until I'd run into a problem. So everyone who's getting in, so if you're at a W-2, you're going to have some sort of seed money, and then you're going to run out of that. So like for me, it was about 19 properties. I had run out of my seed money, and I should, when I say 19 properties, These are predominantly in the Midwest. At the time, it was around $40,000 a door. So not huge purchase price, but a lot of transactions. So 19, I'd bought all by myself. Then I was like telling everybody I was in real estate, and then people were like, hey, I want to invest. And I was like, okay, why don't I do with these partnerships? So then I set up partnerships, 4 different partnerships. And then after a while, I was like, well, I want to keep growing, but I don't necessarily want to do these partnerships because there's a lot of investment on my side for time. Generally speaking, the partners had money, not necessarily knowledge. And so I was like, well, if I only have a finite amount of time, so I got to figure out a different way to scale without partnerships. So that's when I ended up moving into creative financing. And so then I started buying seller financed items, subject to type stuff, so that I can continue to grow with low down payment. And then over time, like when the market rose, then I was able to start refinancing, then pulling that money out and using that to buy more. So it's kind of evolved as I've gone from my own money to partnerships, creative financing, cash out refi. Now I'm focusing on still creative financing, but using debt partners. So having somebody help bring the money in, whether it's a short-term or a long-term deal, paying them. I'm still 100% owner, but I'm paying them interest on the money that they're letting me borrow.
So how did you find the time to do all this? So I know you talk about like trying to find money, being creative about raising money, having a full-time job in your W-2. So when did you have time to scale and grow your business and establish all these partnerships?
So the one key thing that I did that usually separates me from other people, this is all I did. So like I'm not watching TV at night, right? So like I'd never even seen Game of Thrones. I saw a couple episodes, but like I'm never in the loop on the most hip show. I spend my time watching YouTube about real estate, macroeconomics, creative financing, whatever related into the real estate world. So because I'm just focusing on my time there, I'm always like learning. As I'm commuting, I'm listening to podcasts. But the way that worked for me, I was just kind of fortunate that I was investing predominantly in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I would get up early in the morning, focus on my time, the real estate. 8 o'clock comes around, laptop opens for work. I'm doing work stuff. And then lunchtime, I'm focusing on my stuff. At 5 o'clock, work laptop goes down, then I'm focusing on my stuff. Over the time as we got into like the COVID world, I would just do a laptop. I'd have, because I was still going in the office because I don't really like working at home. So I could be on both laptops at a time. Like I can respond to what's going on at work. At the same time, I could do my side hustle. But what the prelude to that is that I used to be a night owl. Then I read Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Shifted everything to the morning. So, because what would end up happening, I would be so exhausted and I'd work till like 6 to 8 o'clock, depends on the night, that I wouldn't work out and I was gaining all this weight. And then I wasn't able to focus on me. So once I read that and I switched to mornings, that was like the pivot. And then from there, I just take all that morning time where I'm fully energized. It's all on me. Then the hours that are left over, that would be for the W-2 job.
Sweet, man. Yeah, I also read The Miracle Morning and I gave that a shot. It was hard for me to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. But to your point, right, you found your energy mostly in the mornings. For me, sometimes I feel like I get my second wind towards later in the afternoon, and that's when I can get the most work done. So it really just depends on you as an individual, like what works out better for you. And then also like, how do you manage your time differently? So you mentioned how your properties are in the Midwest. So you're able to wake up early and get things out or knock things out. So when you're structuring your day, you need to take a look at what things do I need to, like, when do I need to be picking up the phone? Within what time frame? What things do I not need to be talking to people about or talking to my team? Because you can necessarily do a lot of things during like the off hours and not utilize that time for anything else.
Exactly.
It's funny. I also don't have a TV, and I also don't watch TV, and I do the same thing as you. Like I time block in the morning, I time block in the afternoons, go to my W-2, and I put full effort, right? I do my W-2 to the best of my ability, but I make sure that I protect the time outside of that for me to then grow on the business that I eventually want to run. It sounds like you're a couple years ahead of me, which I love, and we'll be chatting much more about that. Trust me. But clearly, you're making all this money. You're closing all these deals. You went out and got an amazing 2009 Dodge car. You're living in your original house hack. What led to you not spending more money because you were making more money?
The lifestyle creep is a phenomenon that most people, if you're American, that's just natural, right? Because there's all this advertising being pumped into you that you need X, Y, and Z thing. And so, I used to think this was kind of like hokey pokey, but having a why on what you're doing, that's going to drive you through. So that I didn't spend money on the other stuff I didn't need. B, it made me focus on getting up early, putting those hours into helping me. And so that's really what drove me. And, now that I'm in the post W-2 life, it is like the hardest thing actually now. I was like, I had this burning desire to get out. Now I'm out. It's like trying to schedule. The irony, right? I was so regimented for 6 years. Now I'm just like getting up early and trying to get work done. And it is amazing like how it seems like I'm inefficient because I don't have that, North Star that's pulling me that every day so I've got to create a new vision that's bigger that'll drive me through because like I'm really struggling on being consistent and, getting more wholesale deals and building my real estate agent business. And it's just, I really am starting to believe into that. If you want something done, give it to the busy guy. So when I was on my W-2 job, man, I was just banging stuff out. Now it's like, well, how am I going to get that done? I'm like, man, I'm like a piece of shit nowadays. I'm like, I got to figure out how to get re-energized, re-motivated to go to that next level. So it's like, yeah, I'm out. I made it to the base camp. I still got to go higher on this hill. So it's like, I've got to trick my mind to get me to that next level. So that's what I'm really focusing on right now.
So I'm a betting man. I have a feeling your why is going to involve around helping other people, just based on your story and kind of the things that you've been sharing with us and what I know about your background. Like I have a feeling your new why is going to be involved with improving your quality of life because, we work for a similar W-2 and it was a grind for a long time. So I'm sure you'll want to do that. And then you're going to want to really help a lot of people grow their wealth and then find their true freedom too, which I would imagine that's going to give you that passion to keep pushing forward.
Exactly. Yeah. So definitely it is right now. I'm helping some people out getting their first out of state properties. A couple of them are closing this month. And then I'm working with, helping my real estate agent clients do a house hack right now. And so if I can continue to do that, that just one, it helps them. Two, it helps me get build more money so I can buy more properties and just, because level one is like you break out of the W-2. Level two is you want that like where you don't have to worry about money. So like I'm still living in the the 1 bedroom and I still have the 2006 Dodge Charger because like, yeah, I have money I can live off of, but it's not like mass quantities of money, right? So I want to keep building my income such that I can never look back, right? Today I'm still having to monitor how I spend, my goal for the next year is then take that next leap to where it's like, I have enough money to where I'm not worried about things. And as I've been talking to other people about it, is like, there's like certain thresholds of life where you get, and, right now, like I'm at where $1,000 doesn't matter. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in high school, if, I'm 43. I remember like $10 to buy gas. That was like a lot of money. Then you get into like college, like that's $100. That's like a lot of money. Now it's like $1,000. I want to get to where it's 10,000, where it's not that big of a deal. Ultimately, I want to have, at least $1 million, where it's no big deal, right? So I'm still kind of working my way up that freedom scale.
Yeah, and I think too, at the end of the day, it's spending money on what's important to you, what brings you joy. Sometimes there's people that will focus on materialistic things, and you get such a high from buying it. After a couple hours later, it's pretty much all done. Where if I follow you on Instagram as well. We talk every now and then. You're traveling, right? So for you, it's nice to be able to use that time, use that money to things that bring you joy. Because if you take care of yourself, to your point, then you're gonna be able to take care of others as well. So yeah, man, that's awesome to see.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. My goal is to get to a level where you have freedom of choice, right? So that's like the ultimate level. Like I technically have time freedom. I can do what I want, but I can't buy like a yacht. So like you have to have money and time to be able to have choice freedom.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm working towards.
Yeah. Have you seen those Instagram reels where it's like millionaires and they have like this little small boat and then they turn like pan to the left and it's like billionaires and this huge yacht? Yeah. Funny.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I want to be able to have a hashtag yacht life and be able to live that. Not there yet.
Good stuff, man. Well, Justin, we're going to transition over to our standard questions that we ask all our guests. And if you already listen to our podcast, you know that Nick is probably going to throw you, not probably, he's going to throw you a curveball there in the end. So get ready for that one. So I'll ask the first question. What's one piece of action a listener can take after listening to this podcast?
Just as in the question, like you mentioned, it's the one thing that separated me was I always took action. So instead of, I'm like a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. So if you guys are getting into the game, and this is what I tell people that are getting into the game, is that you need to be like 30 to 90 days, you're going to learn everything you need to get rolling. After that, you're not really going to learn unless you putting into play your plan, i.e. putting in offers, putting money at risk. So my advice is take massive action and target 30 to 90 days to take that action. So if it's learning, take the action, knock it out, then get into doing offers and deals. And what I tell people, that's like live ammo, because like the books are great, but until you put an offer in, you're not going to really know what the market is. The market speaks when you're putting these offers in. So take action, put your money into play, and do some deals.
All right. So for question number 2, tell us the one thing that your W-2 income allowed you to do in terms of achieving your financial goals.
So kind of 2. One is that it always helped the debt to income ratio. And then 2, there's the way that they paid out with these RSUs, it was lumpy. So it's another way for me not to spend money if I only get it this lump twice a year. So those 2 things help me to, 1, be able to qualify loans, and then 2, have the seed capital to buy properties. And I think later in my career there was that it helped me connect with a lot of people, because very fortunate there that you could create any group that you wanted, affinity group. So I created a real estate at Amazon group. And so then I was able to connect with other like-minded people, grow the group, and help to share the message back to them. So first it was about debt to income and money to buy. And then second was, learning, sharing, and giving back.
And it's funny because I tell people a term all the time, like you don't want to be a secret investor. Like you're not a secret agent, right? You want to tell people, not because you want to brag, you want to flex on these folks and be like, I have this many houses or anything like that. But the folks that you connected with at Amazon may have needed an outlet to invest, and you could have been that person to maybe convince them to take that next step of action. And then 2, you're also building a network of high earner individuals that you could do deals with in the future. They're going to have a certain level of trust in you because they saw you be successful at your company. So I think that's super important for people to do. Don't be a secret investor. Don't be a secret real estate agent. You should tell people, because that's going to exude your confidence, and you'll probably end up helping more people than you think you would just based on sharing that information.
That's funny you say that, because now I'm a real estate agent. Not everybody knows that. And so like, as I'm connecting with people, they're like, oh yeah, I just put an offer in and I'm buying this property. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm a real estate agent. They're like, oh man, I would have used you, but I didn't know. So like now I need to get loud about it. So, you know, if you're watching me on social media, I'll be posting more stuff about being a real estate agent so I can help them. And then the other thing as you're mentioning is like, yes, I built that network of at Amazon through advice that came out of a conference. So I was at a conference. I won a charity auction for $1,000, and I spent the day with Will Bernard down in LA. And he told me, he's like, man, you work around people that make all six figures. Like, why are you not connecting with them? I flew back home that Friday. I created real estate at Amazon. So back to, you know, getting into that network and the masterminds and conferences, it's mega important. So that was 2019, which now will parlay today. And now I can work with those people and help them, whether it's a house hack, invest out of state, whatever they're, or even now some of them want to be private money lenders, which works out great.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Nick, too, when you talk about the not being a secret agent. Funny story. I had someone reach out to me through Instagram that I didn't know of. He's like, hey, you know, I heard about you. I actually connected with your mom at McDonald's, and she told me about you, told me you're a real estate investor and you're podcasting. So I'm listening to your stuff now, man. Like, yeah, hopefully we can connect sometime in the Bay Area. And I'm just like, I mean, that's pretty cool. One, shout out to my mom. Thank you for doing that. But then two, you just never know, like the people that you talk to originally, it doesn't stop there, because then those individuals talk to more individuals, talk to more. And then you eventually start you start kind of building that link where next thing you know, you're partnering with people, or you're getting money through an individual that you knew of, that they knew of. So it doesn't stop with just the first person you talk to.
Oh, I know. You got to put that energy out into the world. And as you talk to people and help people and spread your message, it's amazing how those ripples go out. And, you know, I'm starting to see like the dividend of that over like 3 years of, you know, giving massive to people, you know, helping them with no attachment. Like, here's how you get set up. Here's all my people. Here's what I did, you know, walking everyone through it. Now that stuff is starting to come back to me through referrals and other connections. So it is absolutely awesome. As your podcast becomes bigger and bigger, I'm sure you're going to get more of that. And especially as you go to conferences, you're going to start being a celebrity at like Bigger Pockets and stuff.
Yeah, I think the thing with that is we are in a position, I know, Justin, you're doing the same thing, man. We make great money at our W-2s. You make great money at your W-2. You know, you've invested that money. So even as an agent now, me as an agent, X as an investor, we don't need to profit off of the relationships we're building. We can just pour into people, get value out of helping them and seeing them progress and succeed. And then it's so interesting because then it pours back into you. But I've also found when I'm more like salesy and I try to take like multiple touches that are more about sales and getting deals done and shit, people are like, dude, fuck off, man. Like, stop, leave me alone. Like, you're bothering me. But because I'm in the financial position I am, you are too. As an agent, I can tell people like, hey, I'll answer any questions you want as long as I have the time. I'm not going to expect anything from you. And I think that allows you to just be in a different space than anybody else operating, because they need that paycheck to come in, probably because they did buy the boat or they went out and bought the new 2022 Scatback Hellcat or whatever is the newest thing out there. I don't really know. I'm not a car guy. I drive Honda Civic, but you guys know what I'm saying.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So you ready for my weirdo question, Justin?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, Dick, you can definitely ask that when I ask my question.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. I got it in order.
I know you're so excited to ask that question. So
I am. I've been looking at it for like the last 20 minutes.
So, Justin, what's one thing that you would have done differently in the past with your W-2 income?
If I did it all over again, when I first started there and it was really the RSUs were coming in, you know, being 100% transparent, I hated working there. And I was like, I got to get out as fast as possible. And I was like, I was listening to Dave Ramsey at the time, which is great advice, right? I paid off all my student debt. So like the first year, I was like, I don't know, it was whatever was left. It was like 70, 80,000 or something like that. So I could have took that 80,000 and bought multiple properties with that. And that'd be the number one thing that I would change. Number two, not necessarily W2, is that I only did one house hack in 6 years. Man, if I would have done a house hack every 2 years, that would have been 2 more properties. If I did it every other year or every year, that would have been 5 more properties in Seattle. Then I would have got that equity appreciation. And, I probably would have got out much faster than I did.
It's funny. I think about all that all the time. X and I moved to Virginia for a W-2 for promotions. And I look back at the market in Southern California in 2016 when I moved, and I was already living with roommates when I left. I'm like, shit, I could have bought a house for 3.5% down, rented it out to my roommates, my buddies, lived for free. Could have done that every year, and I wouldn't have had to move to Virginia because I ended up moving to Virginia and then moving in with a new roommate named Xavier Marin. So it was like I did the same thing, just in a completely different state. But I do think too, like everything happens for a reason, and you push that energy out into somebody else. Like, hey, I waited too long. It's never too late to start because we've all found success, but it's also never too early to start if you have a good strategy, because time is going to be super forgiving with real estate. And the more time you're in the game, the more successful you're going to be just based on the numbers, because it's the number one proven asset class to hold against inflation.
Exactly. And you hit on the one thing too, is like, being in SoCal, one of the things that probably factored in is like, man, that's a lot of money, and I don't know if I want to do it. No matter when you're going to buy your primary residence, almost everybody's in the same boat. Like when I bought this one, I was in the same boat. I was like, man, that's a lot of money, but I'm still going to go ahead and go through with it. So you're never going to be like, I have all this money, I'm going to do a primary residence, no biggie, I have all this money to put down. It's generally always you're going to stretch to what you can buy. So like the number one question Nick, I'm sure you get all the time, I get it too, is like, is now a good time to buy? It's like, it's always a good time to buy, especially if you're doing a house hack and you know that it's going to cash flow when you move out. Lock and load, put those offers in, and get out and buy.
So I told my sister-in-law before I had my license, she was getting her house in Chula Vista. She was like, well, I just don't know if it's like a good time to buy or not. And I was like, it's always a good time to buy a house you can comfortably afford the mortgage. If you can't comfortably afford the mortgage, it's never a good time to buy a house. And if you see yourself there for 3 to 5 years, you're going to get a return on your investment. And she was luckily able to pull the trigger, her and her husband, and now they have a beautiful home for their kids in Chula Vista with a pool, and they love it. And I was like, I told them that it was just, it's never the right time, quote unquote, to buy, because it's always the right time if you find the right house and the right deal. Yeah, people expect us realtors to have this crystal ball, like we're going to know exactly what happens. I just bought a $1.45 million house in San Diego. I'm scared like you all are right now, but I know the numbers check out, so I'm going to continue to move forward with the house hack investment I made. So it is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're probably at your, I'm assuming that was a big chunk of money.
The absolute max.
But it's still, at the end of the, 5 years from now, you're going to be like, man, that house hack in San Diego totally turned out.
Mm-hmm.
They're not making more houses in San Diego. I mean, the same as in Seattle, as like San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at the West Coast, we're kind of landlocked. They're going to have to go vertical, and they're getting more compressed. So just one thing, that's less supply that's there, and it's even harder to build. So the end game is going to be good. The price naturally is going to rise.
Absolutely. All right, X, do I have your permission to ask my weird question?
You may proceed.
Okay, good. Thank you. He's my keeper, So, all right, Justin, would you rather be the strongest person you ever meet or have the ability to fly, but you only get to fly 30 feet off the ground?
Oof.
Had to throw
that's a good one.
Had to throw the 30 feet in there to limit, because you could choose flying, strong or fly. Yeah, fly, but now you can only fly 30 feet off the ground. It's not that tall.
Yeah, I think I would choose to fly 30 feet, because 30 feet, you can go pretty much anywhere. And, I'm such a slow walker, and, I'm assuming if I could fly, it wouldn't take that much energy. I have some superpower, because I'm an easy sweater. So then I would just fly if I'm at a conference, fly to the other spot, and I would just get there, perfect hair, no sweat, Life is good.
I'm an easy sweater too. I agree with you on that one. I'm choosing fly for sure. Oh,
You
man.
can always work out too, right?
Yeah.
After you fly to the gym, work out more, fly back.
Exactly. X, I know, would choose strength because he has a Superman gym cutoff that he used to wear to the gym when he used to go in Virginia. So I know he's choosing strength for sure.
Yeah.
I still have that cutoff. I still.
He just got bigger arms now to fill it out.
I was listening to one of your podcasts. I think it was you two. You guys used to work out together, but you're both listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And so you're like not even talking to each other, but both working out.
One time, this
That's
dude in the middle of my bench press pulls out his headphone and goes, "Hey, have you heard about borrowing against your own term life insurance?" And I was like, "No, you're my spotter. What are you doing?" He just throws it back in. I just continue and finish. I was like, "Yeah, awesome." Well, Justin, I know our listeners are hopefully as entertained as we are because we're just feeling really good right now. Where can they find to connect with you? Where can they learn a little bit more about your business, a little bit more about your knowledge? Where should they go?
Predominantly, I'm on Instagram, but Instagram and Facebook, it's under, excuse me, JC Cambra. So JCCAMBRA. So if you find me there, reach out to me, and then I'll connect with you. If I can help you in any way, I will. And, the best part about doing these podcasts is like when people actually reach out and, they say what they liked, and then they usually ask a question, and I can help them out. So it is pretty cool to do these and be able to give back and help other people.
That's awesome. Well, that is all we had today for you guys. I hope everyone enjoyed the episode as much as Xavier and I did. We will be moving on. Thank you, Justin, for the time. We really appreciate it, and we can't wait to have you back on here to share more about your journey.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, that was a really inspiring episode from Justin. I am like fired up right now. I love the idea of what the things that he's doing and just like the staggering amount of numbers. And can I say, so Exon introduced us and we got him on the podcast from him. Can I just say that this guy I'm like doing the math of his income, and I'm like, dude, he's making millions. And he is like the most humble, the nicest guy I think we have had the pleasure of being able to talk to. Really caught me off guard with that. Just because he's downplaying his success so much and helping people, which I loved. But what about you, X? What do you think our guests are taking away from here?
Fire, ready, aim. So I loved his story, what he shared about. He wasn't just taking a backseat trying to gather and learn all this information. He was just going in deep and just going after it. He talks about how first time renting out, one of his units in his duplex, didn't know he had a lease, all the information that he needed, right? Pivot to short-term rentals, pivot to midterm rentals, then started his Turo business with his 2 Subarus, and just deep diving into that and just learning how it goes. So I think it's one of the biggest takeaways is sometimes you don't have to have everything figured out in the very beginning to make that first move. In Justin's case, he did steps 2, 3, and 4, and then just kind of stumbled and make sure he was able to keep going. So I think that was really great to see. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, so I'd say the thing I think the listeners can take away here is you need an exit strategy if you're going to leave your W-2. He worked in a really successful company and made a lot of money, and then he quit his W-2 because he was so financially free he could. And he was like, oh shit, what do I do with myself all day? And then he was struggling because he had such a structure of every day of his life. So for those of you guys out there that are working the W-2 now and want desperately out, just understand, a lot of human beings really struggle without purpose. And if you don't have that purpose in that direction, you're going to be in a bad spot. So your W-2 being no more might be your purpose now, but you need to quickly find a new one so you can roll forward, which is what he's working on right now, which I think is super honorable because he's going to focus it around, I would imagine, helping people discover their financial independence as well.
Sweet. All right, guys. Well, that's today's episode. Thank you very much for joining us today. So make sure to follow us on the W2 Amigos on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. You can find me at Xavier Marin at Instagram and TikTok as well. Xavier Marin _ Sorry, don't forget the underscore. I'm not that famous enough where people are going to have fake accounts of me. So at the end of the day, you're pretty sure you can find me there. But what about you, Nick?
Yeah, so hit me up at the Five Family on Instagram and also on TikTok. And if you guys are looking for any support in the Southern California market, let me know. I'm actually now able to help out folks down in San Diego as well with the house hack. I'll be down there on the weekends. So give me a shout. And with that, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.